Hello there guys, and welcome to my brand new video series called Resident Evil Why the Change. We'll be taking a look at all the main numbered titles from Resident Evil and try to piece together why the franchise has changed so much since its inception. Resident Evil, or Biohazard as it is most commonly known as in Japan, is a game created by Shinji Mikami at Capcom, which made its debut in 1996 originally for the PlayStation 1. To briefly recap the story, you play as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine, who are part of the STARS Alpha team. The Alpha team are sent out to investigate the Bravo team's disappearance in the Arklay Mountains. You get attacked by hellish hounds and take shelter in a nearby mansion. The mansion, however, is littered with the undead known as zombies, as well as a host of creatures and treacherous puzzles.
What is it?
Not long after that, you find a few alive and deceased members of the Bravo team, and realise there is something more sinister at play here. After battling through the zombie hordes, the puzzles, and cheesy dialogue,
That was too close. You were almost a Jill sandwich.
you discover a secret underground facility that is owned by the Umbrella Corporation and is used for biological experiments. It is here that the player learns that their captain, Albert Wesker, is an agent working for Umbrella. Wesker is supposedly killed by the Tyrant, and the whole facility goes into a self-destruct sequence. With pending doom looming over, you scurry off to find your other team members, including the other playable character, and escape from the mansion. The story has multiple endings depending on the actions you take throughout the game. You can save everyone and destroy the facility, or just not save anyone at all and escape. With the ability to play through the game as either Chris or Jill, it makes for multiple playthroughs to see how things would play out from each other's perspective. For example, Jill is helped out by Barry and would meet Rebecca in her playthrough, and Chris is accompanied by Rebecca but wouldn't see Barry in his playthrough. There are also subtle differences between the characters themselves. For example, Jill has more inventory spaces but cannot take as much damage as Chris can. So therefore, if you're playing as Chris, there is a lot more backtracking involved due to the shortage of inventory spaces and not being able to get access to the shotgun early on in the game. The game uses tank controls to navigate throughout the game, which if you're not familiar with, it's basically you look in the direction you want to go and you then run in that direction. You would use your weapon by holding the R1 button and pressing X. The fixed camera angles allowed for some beautiful shots for you to navigate through. The characters and enemies are 3D models superimposed on 2D rendered backgrounds. This allowed the fixed camera angles to often disguise the location of enemies. In most cases, you would be navigating through a room, your view becomes obstructed as you get closer to the edge. Once you step into the next frame, the camera angle completely changes and you get grabbed by a passerby. There are also a host of cleverly designed puzzles which have to be solved in order for you to progress. These puzzles involve finding key items and placing them in a specific spot, to moving objects in attempts to not getting yourself gassed. There is also the combat element to discuss. You are armed with a pistol and a knife when you start, with a few empty slots in your inventory to pick up items or weapons which you discover as you progress. Not being able to move and shoot at the same time meant you had to place yourself at a safe distance before firing. Along with ammo being scarce, you had to pick your fights accordingly. There are also mandatory boss fights you need to win in order to get closer to solving the mystery. These are especially difficult and will completely deplete your resources if you have not been careful throughout your playthrough. There is a lot of micromanaging in the game which adds to the overall game's difficulty, as you have to constantly worry about your ammo, health, inventory space for items, and your fight or flight instinct. You can place any items you don't need in the item box, which are situated throughout the game and are all interconnected. The only way to save your progress in this game was to find ink ribbons littered throughout the mansion, as well as finding a typewriter for you to use your ink ribbon to save your progress, as autosaving was not a thing back then. No ink ribbon, no save, and if you die in between saves you will have to do everything again. Overall, this game put survival horror on the map, along with the name Resident Evil, and cemented itself into gaming history. With all the different gameplay elements, the B-rate horror story and presentation, it deserves to be played by anyone interested in horror or challenging games genre, which surprisingly still holds up today. The game was also released on the Sega Saturn and PC respectively. These releases contained additional content that was not found on the PlayStation release. The PC release included a full-color intro and new weapons. The Sega Saturn featured new enemies and a bonus battle mode minigame, just to name a few. So stay tuned as I bring you more Resident Evil content in the upcoming weeks, and we answer the question together as a group, why the change?